The Utah LDS Church version of Hiram and Joseph Smith's death is a complete fiction, composed of numerous occult, Luciferian, Masonic messages. These are coded messages found within Willard Richards and John Taylor's witness statements, and I will point these out. But I just want you to realize that these witness statements are not to be taken as actual fact. They are indeed coded messages creating a mythology of martyrdom in order to pass the gauntlet from Joseph Smith's church over to the quorum of the 12s, who later designated themselves the 12 apostles. Hello. And in this video, I will also show that John Taylor actually became the real head of the Mormon Church, and Brigham Young his secondary. And Brigham Young was used just like Caesar, who is the front man for the real power behind the throne, who was John Taylor. And these are messages that John Taylor and Willard Richards left in their witness statements of what happened at the Carthage Jail the day the Smiths were murdered, or allegedly murdered, period. Masonic occult Luciferian symbolism found within Willard Richards and John Taylor's witness statements regarding the Hiram and Joseph Smith's assassination at Carthage. Let's start with Willard Richards' obvious Masonic symbol references that just populate his entire witness statement. And these are coded messages to let his brothers in Masonry, including the Texas Masons, who still to this day brag that they assassinated the Smith brothers. Even them, he is sending them a message. So when he starts his witness statement, he talks about the fact that the entire events of the assassination occurred near 3 minutes, or shall I say 2? Well, 32 is a Masonic number. Here's the Masonic double-headed eagle with the big 32 plastered on the chest. 32 is the highest degree that you can reach without being invited into the 33rd degree, which means you become a god. And this basically is Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith dying and becoming gods, and then passing the gauntlet to the 12 apostles. Secondly, Willard Richards makes quite a stir about the fact that a muzzle ball or a bullet pierced the watch of John Taylor, a patent lever, and I looked that up. It means it has the minutes on it also. A ball from without struck Taylor in his watch at his left breast. Now, it's very important because the left breast is where an entered apprentice pulls down and exposes his left breast while he is being initiated. So he pierces his left breast, but fortunately, his watch saves his life. But it smashes the watch into a pie, it says. Why he would put that in? Only because he's trying to send a coded message. Pi is a sacred Masonic geometric number. Pi is how you square the circle. Pi is 3.1415. Here's the symbol of pi. You can see you can square it in the circle, or you can also square it around the circle. Here's 314159, a very important sacred number to the architects of the universe, who are the Masons, they believe. Now, when John Taylor's watch was smashed, it smashed it at a particular time. And this particular time refers to Revelation, or the end period of the millennium, the end of the eon. Okay, so the hands are standing, according to Willard Richards, at 5 o'clock, 16 minutes, and 26 seconds. This is a very occultic numbering system. In numerology, now, numerology is done various ways, but when you know there is a number that's being translated, you do the numerology to see if that number shows up in the various patterns. And so what happens is, let's start out with 5 o'clock plus 1, which is the first one on the 16, equals 6. So there you have a 6, so you leave it. So then 6 plus 6, which is the 16th minute, equals 12, or reduce it to 6, 6. So now we have 2 6s, or you could say 3 6s. But then the next number, 26 seconds, you don't add those together because you've got a 6 already. There are 2 6s, so it becomes another 6 6. So altogether we have 4 6s, 6 6 and 6 6. Now we know in Revelation the number of the beast is 666. Do it, but it refers to the book of Revelation, just like pi refers to the book of Revelation. And what is the number? Okay, I'm just going to go through these 6s. Okay, Smith uses a 6-shooter to kill 3 of the mobocrats and 3 misfirings, which is a 33. Okay, 6-shooter kills 3, 3 kills. So you've got 4 3s at that point. 3, 3, 3, 3. Now, 33 and 66 are both sacred numbers to Masonics, because 1/3 of the circle is 33 degrees, which is when you become a god, and the remaining circle is 66 degrees. So both those numbers, 33 and 66, are very important to the Masons. So I'm going to go through, continuing with Willard Richards and John Taylor. I'm going back and forth. The mob, Richard says, I think this may be in Taylor's witness statement, when they reached their guns into the room at Carthage Jail, they were using their left hands. So that's the left-handed path, or the path of Satan. It's the dark path. You have a right-handed path and a left-handed path in Masonry. White-handed path is known as the white magicians, left-handed the black magicians. Then Joseph attempted at last resort to leap from the window from whence Taylor fell, when 2 balls pierced him from the door. One entered his right breast. Now Taylor was hit on his left breast, but this hits Joseph on his right breast, and he falls forward, exclaiming, "Oh, my Lord, my God." Of course, we know that is Christ's exclamation on his cross. His feet fall forward, and he falls to the ground on his left side, and he, according to Willard Richards, is a dead man. So again, that is a reference. Taylor's witness statement also says, Hiram says, "I am a dead man," and now they confirm that Joseph Smith certainly is dead, and Willard Richards had to check it out twice, went back, and he said, he certainly is a dead man, even though he's, like, I think 12 feet up in the air. How can you tell anyone's dead just because they're not moving? Okay, there's nobody, as you remember, no forensic evidence, no autopsy, no legal evidence that the Smith bodies were dead, or whether or not they escaped. According to my theory, this was a grand theatrical psyop trying to show different various witnesses in the chaos that the Smiths had been shot and killed. So anyway, Richards withdraws from the window. He helps John Taylor out from the bed. Oh, here he says finally he's fully satisfied that Smith is dead. Now, Richards has to mention this twice because that's his role in this thing, is to make sure that Smith dies during this chaos of a fake assassination attempt. So then we're going to move on to Willard Richards' statements, but let's go back to the 666, and that reference is very important because it refers to Revelation and the dead man in Revelation. So, Revelation chapter 1, verse 17, it says, He held in his right hand 7 stars, and a sharp double-edged sword came from his mouth. This is from the book of Revelation. He held in his right hand the 7 stars. That usually refers to the 7 stars of the Pleiades. And a sharp double-edged sword came from his mouth. His face was like the sun, shining at its brightest. When I saw him, I fell at his feet like a dead man. And that's exactly what John Taylor did when he fell from the window. He fell on the ground, believed he was dead, but then John Taylor was resurrected. He suddenly felt his soul come into his body, just like the initiation ritual in Masonry. So out of Revelation, I fell at his feet like a dead man. Okay? He placed his right hand on me and said, Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am the living one. I was dead, and behold, now I am alive. That's the resurrection ritual. Forever and forever. And so this is John Taylor's resurrection ritual. He should have been dead. He thought he was going to be dead at the window. He fell forward, but he says that in the process of falling forward out the window, some force swept him up and threw him back into the room, where he suddenly, after feeling he was dead, felt himself become alive. Okay, and so that's the resurrection of John Taylor. So I also want you to know that John Taylor is interestingly wounded in the Masonic 5 points of fellowship. And this 5 points of fellowship is also included in the old temple ceremony. 5 points of fellowship is how Masons recognize each other. They do foot to foot, knee to knee, breast to breast, hand on the back, and cheek to cheek. All right, so I'm going to go through and show you that Taylor was wounded first on his breast, his left breast that is exposed in Masonry. He's then wounded on his foot when he falls on his feet down to the ground. His knee is also shot, so that's the knee. And in the initiation ceremony of Masons, the Mason has his left breast exposed with the shirt torn open, and they roll the trouser leg of the left leg, I believe, up over the knee, so the knee is exposed. Your left breast is exposed, your left knee is exposed. Then Taylor also claims he was wounded in the hand, which is also with various grips. He was wounded in his wrist, and then the bullet traveled down to the midpoint just above the 5th finger, which are 2 different grips. One is the grip of, I can't remember the different grips, but they have them in the temple ceremony, where one, you place the finger on the pulse or the wrist, and then you also use your fingers to touch different knuckles. And I don't know what the 5th knuckle is, the baby finger knuckle, but I've seen Masons hit the wrist and then hit the 5th knuckle, as well as the 3rd and the 4th knuckle. Anyway, what's also interesting is that when Taylor is dragged into the room. Richards performs 3 hails over him, just like they do in the temple 3 times. And this is what Willard Richards does, chanting a different chant, but it's still 3 hails with his hands coming up and then coming down, which is Masonic temple symbol ritual. Then, most interesting, and this is where the authority passes from Hiram into John Taylor, and this is why I'm claiming that John Taylor at least became the patriarch of the Mormon church at this point in time, and may even have become the prophet, because as we know, Joseph Smith passed the office of prophet to Hiram, and I don't have any documentation that Hiram ever passed the office of prophet back to Joseph Smith. So at this time, Hiram Smith could be both the patriarch and the prophet, which meaning he is the complete leader of the Mormon church at this time in Nauvoo. Well, Taylor drags himself out from where Willard Richards hid him in the next room over, drags himself into the entryway, and then observes Hiram Smith one more time. And what does he say? He says, at the moment he saw the dead body of Hiram the second time, that his soul, Taylor's soul, was cemented to Hiram's soul. This is very occult, because in the occult resurrection ritual, when a person dies, and they have a ritual in which the soul of the person passes through a living person, and that soul is then encased in that living person, therefore is living for eternity. So here we have Hiram's soul being cemented to John Taylor's soul, and at this point John Taylor becomes the patriarch, the prophet, and is carrying Hiram Smith's soul and authority with Taylor's soul. Very strange, I know. Then the final illusion, and there's probably so many more occultic, Masonic, Luciferian illusions, but the doctors that come and treat Taylor, they use a compass and penknife. So they try and dig out the ball in his knee, which they were unable to do with a carpenter's compass, they say, okay, and a penknife, and I don't know exactly what a penknife is. It's probably the square. You can probably open it up on the square. So compass and penknife, and this is the very famous symbol. So I know that's a very rough rendition of all the occult symbols, but as you can see, these are not real witness statements of actual facts. They are coded messages to each other, the Masonic brothers, to show that the Mormon church, the Smith Mormon church, the authority passed on to Taylor and the 12 apostles, and these are all the coded messages to the Masons, who are also in on the assassination of the Smiths, to let them know, wink wink and a nod, they fell down on their right side and they uttered, I am a dead man. The revelation reference of 6666, or the 33rd degree of Masonry. So that is why you cannot use these witness statements to determine what happened that day at Carthage. Of course, my theory is that both the Smiths survived Carthage, and this was just an elaborate theatrical play, because nobody, not Taylor and not Willard Richards, saw Joseph Smith die. They claimed to be close enough to Hiram to see him shot, but of course people look, John Taylor was shot 5 times and survived. Why do we not think that maybe Hiram survived also? So there's nobody that certified Hiram as dead, just eyewitness statements saying they look dead. And then we only have Willard Richards looking 12 feet up and saying, yeah, Joseph Smith, when he fell, looks dead to me. Well, that's going to be controverted by a third witness, a young Mormon boy who became very famous for the miraculous events that happened outside Carthage Jail around Joseph Smith's body as it was propped up alive, according to this witness, alive, at the front of Carthage Jail, where Joseph Smith fell and then was faced by the angry Carthage Greys, who were all of 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds, carrying guns loaded with blanks, because they never used real bullets during any military ceremony. They would only pass out real bullets if they were actually going to war. And none of the witness statements said that after they had done this military celebration in front of General Ford, no one says they were given actual ammunition. And in fact, Thomas Sharp says that all the guards at the Carthage jail, their guns were loaded with blanks. And of course, all the teenagers who formed the Carthage Greys, who had been in a military exhibition that day, they only had blanks in their guns. They had blank, which means there was just gunpowder with no balls. Gunpowder to make a loud sound of gunfire without any ammunition being expelled. So, of course, with no ammunition at the Carthage Greys, could any of the Smiths ever die, especially with everyone having blanks in their guns? And of course, I've said already, my theory is that both the Smiths survived. Taylor and Willard Richards did not witness anyone die. They were as in chaos as much as everyone else. And remember, this whole scenario took, 3 to maybe 2 minutes. So no one really had the wits about them to know exactly what happened, except for John Taylor and Willard Richards having assistance in writing these coded Masonic messages with a wink and a nod, exclaiming in symbolic language that yes, they believed the Smiths were dead and all these rituals occurred, passing the Smith Church over to Willard Richards and John Taylor with all their occultic Book of Revelation symbolism.